Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have Dr. Onna Lo, who is an incredible physician, join us today for our podcast on burnout from exhausted to energized as doctor's guide for you. So today we're going to talk about burnout, the different habits that you can take when dealing with burnout, really what burnout is, and then how to thrive after with and after burnout. So I welcome Dr. Onna Lo.
Thank you, Dr. Gettings. I'm delighted to be here.
Of course, happy to have you. So, just for our listeners, Dr. Onna Lo is an Ivy League trained physician, functional medicine expert, and high performance coach who helps high achieving women reverse burnout and reclaim lasting joy and vitality. Through a unique blend of hormone balancing, gut health, stress mastery, and mindset work, she empowers professionals and leaders to feel energized, focused, and fulfilled. Drawing from decades of clinical experience, her own journey through chronic pain, burnout, from wheel turning pace of corporate medicine, and the real life demands of motherhood and menopause, Dr. Onna Lo empowers busy professionals to create sustainable habits and thrive in all areas of life with vitality, purpose, and calm. So, thank you so much again for joining us, Dr. Onna Lo.
Yeah. I've been through it and I've seen through it.
Yes.
We all know what stress feels like in all the facets, especially being a woman. And we're probably very intimately aware of it around us in other women. And so this is a very important topic to
Hmm.
really share and support women out there.
Yes. So excited to have you and talk especially about all the tools. So, first of all, can you explain really what happens in burnout and how can people be more aware of it when it is happening?
Yeah. Burnout is essentially when your body and your brain is saying, I can't keep doing this anymore. Often there's the body that says, we're going to keep going, or the mind that says, I don't hear you. I'm going to keep going. But we all know there's a line that we're just passing. And it's a matter of what kind of signs and symptoms are showing up. And often from physically, your stress response is basically switched on for so long. There's too much stress hormone, cortisol, there's adrenaline, right? Even your nervous system is just going in high speed and it just doesn't have the capacity to recover. So when you sleep, you're not getting enough rest. You wake up tired. You're wired. You don't want to rest, right? You feel like you just need to keep going or you're overwhelmed. You can't actually calm down and you can't actually pause. And what shows up on the outside can be brain fog, irritability, right? You get just anxious, you get hyper vigilant, you feel like things are going to go wrong. And if you don't get really in control, something really bad's going to happen and you can't handle it. And often it's also you stop enjoying things that you used to enjoy and love. And sometimes the earlier signs are often just trouble sleeping, feeling tired even after you sleep, or constantly saying, oh, I just need to push through. So awareness starts with noticing these little whispers that are coming through.
Exactly. So, we're definitely in that kind of wired and tired state where when we're in burnout. And I see this a lot in patients as well. And I'm sure you do as well since you treat burnout. And then when you're when patients come to you, like how are you helping patients through burnout? What is your process? Because like we talked about a little bit before, it's not you can actually typically what's happening with patients is it's not like they come pre-burnout, right? A lot of people are just like they're in really high stress environments, they're entrepreneurs or high performing women. So typically they're coming like when they're in burnout. So how do you help them through burnout? And then what is your process?
Yeah. Often it really helps being a doctor because I think it's the physical symptoms that draws our attention. And so I often tell my patient who comes in with suddenly just uncontrollable migraines, severe back pain, severe neck pain, their shoulders have these huge knots that they just, they go to a massage therapist and they know they can get, the value and they can just jam their elbow to get these knots out, but still don't relieve that stress. Or people who have just difficulty heartburns, right? I have patients who just carry their PPI or their Tums and they just pop it because that's just what they have as symptoms. So first symptom often is physical. And often my I would say a high percentage of my patient come because they can't sleep, they're exhausted, they're anxious, they have pain, and they're severely tired. Or women who are still menstruating, they would actually have really out of whack hormones. And those are severe enough that they slow them down and say, this is not actually going to make me continue my high performance. And they actually have to finally do something about it. So the body's shouting. So what I first do is always just stabilize the body, help them start recognizing the connection between these symptoms with, right, the underlying burnout, which is hormone, cortisol overload, overdrive, nervous system overdrive, adrenaline overdrive, and then also just habits of sometimes when you are exhausted, what do? You add stimulants, you have your coffee, you have second, third, fourth cup of coffee, or you would have trouble sleeping. So you would take your melatonin, you would ask for medication so that you can fall asleep. You get so anxious. So you would start addressing the symptoms of that rather than actually looking at the root cause. And so, really, the first line action is helping a lot of these women recognize the symptom that they're having is very treatable. And also, how is it related to the underlying stress response? And then after that, typically what happens is they feel better. Their symptoms is better. They feel relief. And when they have more energy, they can now start really approaching the underlying strategy around dealing with stress, around with dealing with life, right? Because often when you're in that go state, whether it's a job that just won't stop, whether you're in this high level, you're the top person in your business and everyone's relying on you and you cannot slow down because there's people who need you and there's customers who need you and you haven't created systems in place that actually helps you relieve some of these stressors and you're exhausted, you just have no capacity. So my first line is give people that physical energy capacity back. So they're like, wow, I can actually recover. From there, they take action.
That's beautiful. So actually, when they're in that state, they're more aware probably after they get out of the fight or flight state to actually take action, which is helpful. And then what are certain habits people can really do when they're in burnout to help themselves get centered throughout the day?
Yeah. One note that I want to go back and mention is why is it so important for people to start feeling better? Because I think burnout is a very nervous system disorder. It's a neurohormonal imbalance. And when our body starts feeling better, it's retraining our nervous system and our body notice and we want more. We naturally just want better and we want to feel good. And if we've just been in the dump for a long time and all of a sudden we're like, wow, this is what like a 300 count, thread count, Egyptian cotton bedding feels. This is what like a full day's rest and my body's just relaxed feels like. They will remember, the nervous system will remember, the hormones will remember. And so that internal pharmacy will drive them to continue to approach that. And so I want to give hope to a lot of these patients is that you actually, once you give yourself a little bit of that taste, the body actually would also take over and support. Simple habits. I always give people 3 habits. One is actually in the morning, always ask yourself, why are you doing this? Who are the people who needs you? And why are you doing this? Because often burnout is from productivity habits that just get you producing, but not producing for the outcome you truly desire for yourself and for your future self. So having a very crystal clear reason and desire for yourself. So ask yourself, where do you want to be a year from now? Where do you want a company to be? Where do you want your relationship with your family be? What do you want your life to look like 30 years from now when you're retiring? Have that guide you so that every morning you're not lost in just reacting to every email, everyone else's agenda, someone else's drama, someone else's incapacity, and just staying focused on that. The second one is actually having pauses in between transition, going from job to job, right? Going from your morning with your family to now your business, from your business to another meeting, going from your meeting back to your home. Having clear transition times where you once again recenter, because often we are overproducing, we're driving ourselves. Often it's because it's this natural state of being afraid of something bad that might happen, afraid of something being difficult, or afraid that we're not going to get the results we want. And it becomes us being reactive. So again, giving ourselves that space, whether I often say, hey, if you have that clear mindset, it could just be every time you open the doorknob to a new door, every time you get out of the car, if you're on the meetings a lot, every time you press the start meeting button, just take a deep breath, or have a prompt. What is the feeling I want to feel today? Having those prompts really help. And finally, really just reclaiming your morning, meaning that sometimes you're exhausted but then you go straight to someone else's agenda, picking up a phone call, going on news, and just again let your mind be distracted. So simply say, what is this morning about? And let that morning guide the rest of the day. So sometimes it's just eating breakfast. Sometimes it's actually making sure you have enough protein. Sometimes going for a walk. Sometimes it's actually just write down your list of things that you really find important. So reclaiming your own space.
I love those moments of transition as well, because then people can really reclaim their day as opposed to going from task to task, overworking and whatnot. So that's really beautiful. So if people are having physical issues of burnout, what are things that they actually might notice and what can they do?
Yeah. Often the common signs could be palpitations, tension headaches, gut issues, indigestion, heartburn, or like their stomach gurgling, right? Often the patients come in and say, my stomach's just gurgling, or I'm just getting really bloated. The moment I eat, even if it's just water or some soup, very light amount of food, their belly just bloats. Or often we would hear a lot is weight fluctuation, right? Being like, I didn't do anything yesterday and now I gained 3 pounds. And then, or often it would be just feeling really tired and wired. And the background to this is because our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve that supports that, actually innervates and support all these organs throughout the body. So our eyes, our fossa, our throat, our stomach, our heart, our belly, and our skin. So our circulation. So the vagus nerve, which is in charge of the fight or flight, is connected to so many of the systems. As a result, all of those symptoms can show up. And you might hear something when people really burn out, something called dysautonomia, is when their body is actually just out of whack and it just no longer does what it's supposed to do. And it goes out of whack and start doing things where it doesn't make sense.
I see that a lot as well, where what starts to happen, at least for some of the patients that I see, is they'll start to have visceral hypersensitivity, which is which means essentially that even if they have food, all of a sudden they can feel their intestines or have these other sensations in their body. And it's just a mismatched signal kind of coming from the brain to the gut. So a lot of these situations can happen. So thanks so much for sharing those physical symptoms. So often what I see is people just wanting to just shut down. They're in such burnout. They're like, please make life just go away. So for those people experiencing burnout and just having that feeling of wanting to shut down, what can they do when they're in that state?
Yeah. I think, first of all, I would invite everyone who's listening right now, just take a moment and actually just listen to your body for a moment. Often, without us realizing, we might be holding our breath. We might be holding a little bit of tension. If you are one that's sitting on your desk a lot, we might be even holding in our bladder so that we don't pee until the end of the day. Or often we have a little tension around our stomach where we're actually feeling a little tense and tight. So we don't even feel hungry until we're done with our work. So I think the first line is actually become aware of these amazing little whispers our body naturally have. And it just start by these daily moment to moment kind of notices. Even just, am I salivating? Is my temperature cold, warm or cold? Often you will see patients saying, I'm cold all the time. My fingers and my feet are cold and I'm just right. And it's a hot day out. That's us in that slight stress response where our body's saying, you're stressed. Let's bring all the blood flow to your heart and your lungs so that in case you need to run, you've got all the muscles and energy and circulation to go in the right place. So now all the blood is actually circulating away from your fingers, from your gut, and from your feet. And so that you're just cold in your extremity. So those are very nice ways to just start becoming connected to these symptoms. That's why I love functional medicine, because it's really right about educating your patients to become a lot more articulate about all the different things your body's telling you, and they become an expert about their own measuring device. And so just by starting to feel that, you're more likely then to be able to respond or shift in a smaller increment, because you're telling me all these patients, often they're like, I can't do this because it's overwhelmed. I'm already overwhelmed. And you asking me to do these overwhelming things to make me not less overwhelming. And so I think when you are able to make these incrementally smaller awareness, then you can actually have incrementally smaller adjustments. And so I start with that awareness, and then I would shift with one little trick, which is ask yourself right now, what is the feeling you want to feel at the end of the day? Now, if were to ask you, Valerie, what would you want after a long day today doing all this beautiful work? What would you want to feel when you are tucking yourself in bed and about to fall asleep?
Yeah, I would want to feel peace and fulfilled and knowing that the work I did throughout the day was rewarding.
Yeah. So often patients would say that because they've experienced some of that, right? Often it might be related to the beach or right, related to some vacation that they've had, and the body has already stored some of that memory. And so activating that feeling rather than wait until at the end of the day, actually do it throughout the day. And we call that heart coherence, meaning when we actually connect to that feeling, your heart's able to generate the internal coherent pharmacy that would then connect with the heart, connect with the brain, connect with your hormones, and actually recreate a lot of these exact same kind of chemicals so that your body is now flooding your system with these chemicals and you're able to start rebalancing things even without your reality changing. So that's why it's so powerful to just start with just a small feeling of when you're exhausted or your like tension's tight and you're like, oh, I want to just feel really relaxed. And my shoulders are just so soft, right? And then as you just start recommanding the system, your body can actually start making those changes before you have to make your life change.
That's incredible. I love heart coherence. I know Joe Dispenza also talks a lot about this as well as, but just so helpful, especially taking it throughout the day, not waiting till the end of the day to reflect, but taking it with you through the day. And then what are the three easiest solutions to burnout that people are really overlooking?
Yeah. Again, I'm very aware of people, high performers who have owned companies, who have a big team, who have families, who are taking care of elders and youngers. They don't have a lot to offer right now as they're at this point. Building a team, knowing that it's not going to be forever, but it's not how, but who sometimes. And get a massage therapist, have regular scheduled time with friends that really soothes your support you, have mentors so that you're actually getting to improve what you need to improve, have doctors that helps with hormone balancing, have doctor that helps your gut feel better so that you're not having all of these gut symptoms and feeling even more tired. The second one is actually blocking time. I think that we can say, do all these things, right? How often you say, go to sleep earlier, wake up and do some exercise, eat a healthy lunch. But really, it's really impossible to do that until we get in the habit of building small blocks of time dedicated to that. And often I say build a team by paying for a trainer, paying for a doctor, paying for a massage, is that and scheduling it into your schedule, is that we're so trained to actually respect schedule and respect that once we've paid, we don't want to actually opt out and have to get a refund. And so we're more likely to actually do that. So it's almost like a little trick. And then finally, the third one is I would say you might hear all these recommendations to do all of these extra things, but until you truly rest, there's still no resource for you to actually do these extra things. So before you go exercise, before you go to the gym, take a rest, slow down, take a brain space day, take a physical space day, and really just sleep so that you can start recovering and then apply what energy you have generated towards building good habits.
I love that. I love that you mentioned also rest because you're right. If we are just go, but people are not actually sleeping, it's really hard to recover at all during the day. And then, so is there anything else that you would add for someone who is experiencing burnout?
Yeah, I think by the time you're really feeling right irritable, feeling brain fog, feeling exhausted, and have all these symptoms, it is really hard to do it alone. And I think that, right, Dr. Gettings, you have a practice that is full and thriving on supporting gut and thyroid, which often, burnout and that go is a part of what creates that disbalance. And once you have that symptom, it's really hard to turn back and say, let me work on my mindset. So I would say get functional medicine support so that you rebalance your hormone. It's really easy. We see it change in just 2 to 3 months. You can actually really feel better if you have the right help supporting your thyroid, supporting your diet and nutrition, and supporting the gut. Because often we don't realize that you could be taking all these supplements and eating so healthy, but if you're not digesting because your gut has shut down from stress, it's gonna go in a very slow pace. So
Right.
high performers who want to get effective treatment and support fast, in the same way you want your life to have that kind of high performing like outcome, then have the kind of help. Get that help so that you can reclaim your days and reclaim your years ahead.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And then where can people find you?
Yeah. So my website is onnalomd.com. And you can find me on Instagram at onnalomd. And I'm launching a high performance circle for women around burnout to reclaim vitality and joy, giving mindset and support similar to this. So look me up on my website for more of those details.
And then where are you located? Where's your practice?
Yeah, I can see patients anywhere in California because I'm virtual, and I do have a physical location in Berkeley, San Francisco area.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely wonderful to talk with you today. And thank you so much for sharing these beautiful tips on burnout. It's so helpful, especially for high performing women, because we're just taught to really go and then we face all these symptoms. We're like, what do we do now? So I'm so glad that you're there to help your patients as well. And thank you again for sharing these tips. And thanks so much again for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.